Hi Carrie, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm doing good, thanks. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you.
Before we get started, I want to read our disclosure statement off for you. That way you'll know what to expect.
Sounds good.
So this is a performance project for my class in individual counseling and individual counseling and psychotherapy techniques at Mid-America Christian University. I will not be doing formal counseling or trying to treat you. Rather, I am simply demonstrating a set of counseling skills. If you do wish to work further on these issues, then you need to see a qualified counselor. Ethical guidelines indicate that I cannot talk to you regarding these issues you discuss later and cannot follow up with you about what we discuss. I will be recording this session and will send a transcript of it to my instructor. Only the instructor will view the evaluated sessions. I will remove the recording after receiving my grade on the project, and we have about 10 to 20 minutes. Do you give me permission to record this session?
Yep.
Okay, great. So I know that when we talked on the phone, you had said that you were having a little bit of problems with anxiety and kind of having to stay busy, or your words, you were using the words anxiety, and that you felt like you always had to stay busy. Go ahead and tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I just struggle with I constantly want to take something off my plate, but then once I get it off, then I end up adding something else, and I'm just trying to figure out why I can't, just be okay with doing two things. I currently have two jobs, and I just quit another job, and then I took kind of a side preaching gig, and it's turned into every Sunday. So
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about what your job is, how much time that takes?
So I have my main job is 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, and then I'm preaching pretty much 3 times a month, and then so I'm having to write a sermon, I'm having to make PowerPoints, so it takes quite a bit of time out of my day. I also go to school, and then I also have a family, so I'm just constantly doing something.
Okay. So you stay pretty busy with all of that.
I do. I like to call it organized chaos, but at some point it's getting to the point where it's could I really possibly only do one job?
Yeah. When was the last time you did only have one job?
Probably about 8 years ago.
Okay. And what did you do when you weren't working?
I ran a lot, I worked out a lot, and my kids were really little, so they took a lot of my time. Now they have their own friends, and they don't spend as much time at home.
Okay. So, in the past, working one job, then outside of work, you've had a lot of time where you've actually spent on yourself and also on your family.
Yeah.
Do you find yourself doing some of those same things now when you have multiple things on your plate, or the organized chaos?
Yeah, so I still am able to spend time with my family and stuff, but it's definitely not a broad amount of time, because I have to just be okay, I only have this amount of time to give to my family, and then I have to go write my sermon or do my homework.
Okay. All right. Do you find yourself ever wishing that there was more, you had more time to do on some of the things that you're not spending time on?
Oh yeah, I don't think that my sermons are up to par where I believe that they should be, and some of my homework I wish I could spend more time, and obviously I wish I could spend watch a full movie with my kids instead of leave in the middle of it to finish doing something else. So I try to, I'm multitasking, but I'm not really, because I'm just leaving one thing to do another thing, and I'm usually leaving it unfinished.
Yeah, so when you're multitasking, you don't feel like you're giving the same quality to each things that you're multitasking?
Oh yeah,
Is
for
that
sure,
kind of-
yeah.
Okay, I understand, yeah. Why do you think it is that you keep taking on so many things?
I just have I think I have a fear of not being busy. I need to be doing something. Sometimes I worry that I feel as long as I'm busy, it's proving my my worth to be here on earth
By being busy.
by being busy. Because the things that I'm busy about, they usually have like a positive outcome.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're like a bucket list, or like it's something that's going to be important.
What was the last thing you completed that would have been like one of the things that you said was quality? Like the last project you completed. What was it?
The last, I mean, would be my last class. I did make a 94 in that class, so I would say that was completed pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
I would say the last time I wrote a sermon that I really felt like I had good passion in would be about like a year and a half ago.
Okay. So out of those two things, the sermon that you said, and then completing the class, which one of those was a bucket list item?
Oh, neither one of those would be. I guess the class would be kind of a, like just getting my master's. I feel like can be like a bucket item probably.
Okay. Well, that's a good one. So that'll be worth finishing. Okay. So you mentioned something about that if you stay busy all the time, the things that you are being busy with are proving your worth.
Yeah, I would say that there's a little bit of that. I have a learning disability, like I'm dyslexic, so a lot of times, like the more I push myself in education, the more I feel like I'm at par with like other people.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Is that, if I were to repeat that back to you, the way I'm hearing it is I kind of took away that you feel like you're working harder to be equal to other people?
Yeah.
Is that what that was?
Because I feel like I'm not equal to.
So you feel like you're less than, so
Yeah.
you have to work harder.
Yeah.
To be, okay.
So I feel like if I put all these things on my plate, surely like that will make me be like, I guess, quote unquote, like a normal person.
Got it. Okay. Let's just say that that all you had to do was work one job and take care of your family. I know the last time that was 8 years ago, but times have changed. So right now, what would happen if you were only working one job and you had your family? What do you think you'd fill that time with?
I would get antsy.
Would you?
Yeah. I would have to fill my time with something else. I would probably train to run another half marathon or something.
But if you were training to run a half marathon, is that more because that's an individual pleasure, or is that more work? How do you view, what do you view running a marathon, work or something that brings you pleasure?
I would say it's, I don't know, both, because it would start out as pleasure, but then I would like to make sure that I beat a certain time and would turn into work.
So the individual goal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say if you were running a marathon, that wouldn't neither be work or pleasure. If it was me,
Yeah.
that would be torture. But this is you, so I want to find out what will bring you joy, and you know what you could do with joy in that downtime. So you're saying that if you only worked one job, you got home at 4:00, then what would you do at 4:00?
I'd probably start dinner and prep to be with my family.
Okay. So then if you make dinner, we figure maybe what time would you eat? 5:00?
Yeah, 5 or 5:30 or something like that. Yeah.
And then you spend time with family. What do you normally do when you're like at dinner time? And do you do anything with family spending time after that?
Yeah, we usually play Uno. My kids love like card games, so we usually play a bunch of card games and stuff like that.
Okay. And then what could you see yourself doing after that?
I would probably need a hobby.
Okay. So the things that I'm hearing out of just a couple things that we're talking about is I'm hearing that if you had more time on your plate, you'd have a hobby, which normally hobbies bring joy.
Right.
People do them because they bring joy. Or running, if you did that, that was going to bring probably some joy if you were trying to beat records.
Yeah, if I could figure out how to run without probably signing up for a half marathon, then that would be like, it would be a joy. But eventually I get antsy and feel like I need to do something that's going to push me to change it, like hit a goal or do something like that's productive.
Yeah. And all of that is to feel like you belong here, like you're worthy that you've lived here.
Yeah.
Or that you're worthy to be living.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, my mom and brother died when I in a house fire when I was 5, and I was in that house fire. And sometimes I just struggle with like, you know, they died, I didn't. Like I should be doing things that are like important in life. I should be helping people. I shouldn't just be like at home, like crocheting. That's
When you look back on what happened to your family and the fact that you're still here, and then I think you said your sister's still here also,
right.
That you guys lived, and you feel like maybe a little bit of survivor's guilt is what you mentioned.
I would say,
awesome. Yeah, the survivor's guilt. Okay, so that's driving you to try to make an impact on other people's lives to prove that you're worthy.
Right. On other people's lives and on my life as well. Just, knowing that I could like start something as hard as running a half marathon and finishing gives me a sense of, I'm doing something good. Especially since the only half marathon I ran is the one for the Oklahoma City bombing.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just something to be said of like, we owe it to the ones that aren't here anymore to live a life that's like worth living, because they don't get that chance.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, that's good. That's really deep. Okay. Your faith is really important to you, and I know that you do sermons. Do you think that if God was looking down on you, that He would think that you're worthy?
That's a good question. I don't really know how to answer that.
Yeah.
Because that would be my whole issue of like who dies and who lives.
Yeah. But He chose you to live.
Right.
Do you think that you have to keep proving to Him that His decision was a good decision?
I don't necessarily think that I'm proving it to God. I think I'm proving it to myself.
Okay. Is there anything that's ever helped you? Like your thoughts when you're thinking of you have to prove it to yourself? That's pretty strong. That you have to prove to yourself that you're worth living when other people didn't live. Is there anything that ever makes those thoughts kind of fade away?
I think they fade away for a small portion of time after I do something.
Mm-hmm.
Like after I ran the half marathon, after I got my bachelor's degree, after I got ordained.
Mm-hmm.
There's a good chunk of time that I'm like, okay, I think I'm good now.
Mm-hmm. Until the silence creeps in.
Yeah, correct.
And then you gotta find something else to fill it. Okay.
Yeah, so I just struggle with like being okay with like not doing a million things, I guess. But I also struggle with just like people dying. My mom died at 28, so young. There's all these things that I want to do, and time just like never stops. So it's like, how are you going to do them all if you don't put them all on your plate at one time?
Yeah. Have you ever made a list of all these things? Do you have a list? I know you mentioned a bucket list earlier. Do you have a list?
I don't have like a written list, no.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about making a written list?
No. But I can.
Yeah, I think that would be a good thing to do. Is it maybe make a list, maybe before our next session, make a list. Not our next session, because I'm not going to be helping you after this session, but before the next session with your counselor.
Yeah.
Maybe make a list of big things, and then maybe break it down to some smaller things, and then see if some of those things involve working 12 jobs.
Right?
At a time.
I don't, but yeah.
Yeah. One thing that I had someone share with me one time is when I'm 90, sitting on the porch thinking back on my life. What are the things that I'm going to wish I would have done more of?
Yeah, that's a good.
If you were to think of that for yourself, what do you, when you're 90 sitting on the porch, what do you think you'll look back on?
Obviously, I would want to spend more time with my kids.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's like, because no one, I know that saying, because no one sits, hangs out at 90 and wishes they had spent more time at the office or more time alone or whatever.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Have you ever thought about what kind of legacy you want to leave behind?
Yeah, I want to leave a legacy that proves that life was like worth living, that it's like, even though I know it's not a good idea to do a million things at one time, I still think it's important not to waste your life.
Well, really, I think getting down to the bottom of the silences scares you, or the silence, you always feel like you have to fill that void. But if you could see yourself, so you said it when you're sitting on the porch 90 and you look back and you want to spend more time with your kids.
Right.
So spending time with your kids, can that actually be furthering your legacy of doing good so that you're better prepping them to go out in the world and do good also? So it's kind of like leaving your mark.
Right, with my kids, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So if you, right now, if you're writing sermons, you're going to school, you're working, are there things that you look back and you wish you would have done more with your kids? Like in the present time?
I don't know. I mean, right now, like, you know, like I said, that they're kind of like on their own. They're always going to their friend's house or whatever. And when they were little, I was like super involved. Like I worked at a church, so I could be at all the plays and the Valentine's Day parties and all the things. So I'm not for sure I have any regrets right this second, but.
Well, not regrets, but this week, what could you do with your family if you had more time? Are there things that you could do with them to build them up, to maybe fill that void with something that's important? Like you said, that you fill the void because you want to give back and do important things to be worth living. But you also said you want to spend time with your kids when you're 90. When you're 90 and you're looking back, you would want to spend time with your kids. So if there wasn't a silence, or if there was a silence now, what would you do with your kids this week?
I would probably take them to a batting cage. They're really into playing baseball right now, so I would probably scoop them up and spend all day doing whatever they wanted to do.
Do you do that now, though?
Do I?
Yeah, do you do that?
I did play baseball with them today. So
Oh, that's good.
but I didn't like, you know, like extreme like drive all the way to the city to do all it. Yeah. So
that makes sense. Okay. So I think really, as we're just kind of reflecting back today on the parts that stick out to me, is that always spending time doing something. You always have to do it.
yeah.
The silence kind of, if there's silence creeping in, that means you're not busy enough.
Right.
Yeah. And but at the same time, you said that you feel a little, what are the words? I'm so sorry. I want to make sure I get this right. You said that survivor's guilt, possibly. Is that a word you use, survivor's
Yeah, I would
guilt?
use that word. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you talked about the survivor's guilt with your therapist?
I have.
Oh, that's good. Okay. And does she ever recommend things to you that helps calm that, or ways to get around that feeling? Did she say, are you guys working on fixing that feeling of survivor's guilt, or is that just something that will stay with you? I'm just curious how she said.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of just acceptance that I was the one that one of the people that lived,
Mm-hmm.
and to have like acceptance, and then like you like be more like grateful for what the time I have,
Mm-hmm.
and not try to like bundle it all up in a bunch of jobs and stuff. But it was more of like a mindfulness of just being, if I could use the quiet time to just be grateful.
How'd that make you feel? The thought of use the quiet time.
I don't like to be quiet.
Okay.
So it's a work in progress for
Yeah.
sure. And I mean, I'm doing, I'm getting rid of like a massive part of my pastoral job.
Mm-hmm.
So on April 20th, that will be done, and I'll not have so much on my plate. But
So once you get rid of that job, then you're gonna have school. You'll have your normal day job, and then you'll have sermons on the side. Will you still
Right.
have those?
Yeah.
But if you get rid of one of those tasks, then that means there's gonna be silence. But possibly earlier you did say that if you had more time, you would dedicate it towards doing better at some of the other things that are important to you.
Right.
Okay, so you can spend more time on your schoolwork, more time with your family, more time doing your sermons.
Yeah, and I really would I think I would feel a little bit more at peace to have more time for my schoolwork, just because it's getting harder and harder, and eventually I'm gonna have to take this massive test, and so it would be nice to just be like, oh, there's like that space that I have to study when I have time. So
Well, sounds like you've come up with a plan.
Yeah.
Start taking some of those things off your plate. That's good. All right. Do you have anything else you want to talk about today?
No, I appreciate your time, and I enjoyed chatting with you.
Me too. All right.
20 minutes exactly. It's 20 minutes and 57 seconds.